Well, hello and welcome to episode number 388 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. In this week's show, some BA passengers spend rather a long time on board an aircraft, Ryanair are accused of blackmail, and United Airlines are off to Spain. Well, Mallorca anyway. In the military, the B-1 bombers, we highlighted last week, start moving throughout Europe. The US Air Force's AC-130 Ghostrider gunship gets a new test laser, and a Royal Australian Navy MH-60 Seahawk ditches, thus grounding the whole fleet until the investigation is complete. So joining me across the village in the PTUK Master Suite studios this week, as always, is Matt Smith.
Hello. Just read out Lee's comment there that Nev just popped up on the screen. I like that. What's happening? It all seems to be running smoothly. I don't like this at all.
I don't know what you're saying, Lee.
No,
it always runs like this.
Yes, of course, absolutely. Yes, because Carlos is not in the studio to disturb me or distract me. That's what it is. Yes, hello, mate. How are you?
Oh, good. Yeah. It's been one of those weeks where I'm glad that it's Friday. That's for sure. And I've vowed never to go back to London again ever.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Well, at least not this year.
Right. Okay. Well, at least not behind the wheel of a vehicle.
No. I think I'll stick to going by train in future.
Oh, absolutely. I'm completely with you on that one. Yeah.
but to be fair, I'd have seen a few more sites in London that I hadn't seen before, which is quite nice. Some historical.
Oh, right. Historical. I wondered if you'd been to one of those special areas again. I don't
know. No. So it's been a busy week, and I'll tell you what, I must have covered a fair few hundred miles this week. Actually,
yeah. Actually, Tony S has just said in the chat room the traffic was awful today, so it's probably just as well you were coming home yesterday. I think by the sound of it, yeah. Friday traffic was always a nightmare.
To be fair, we did leave central London at around sort of 4:30 yesterday afternoon, which is probably not the best.
Not the ideal
time central London.
Yeah, I think in reality it doesn't matter what time you leave London, it's always going to be a bit poo. And on the subject of London and somebody who has to spend an awful lot of time going into and travelling himself and travelling, Nev, a very good evening to you.
Yes, hello folks. How are we all doing?
All right. Have you been into the capital at all lately?
Yes, I was this week, and also went to Edinburgh and back on Monday and Tuesday.
As you do.
I still think some of the ground staff need to remind themselves on how to board an aircraft.
Right. Okay.
At Edinburgh.
Well, it's been a while. They're a little out of practice.
I know. It's not fully in practice, are they? But,
not quite.
Yes. So, but no, all very good. Thank you very much. Another hectic week. I'm quite glad it's the end of the week. Actually, it was
I imagine
lots of stuff going on this week. So
I bet.
And spent last night with young Captain Nick and his family, and he very kindly treated me to one of his nice Indian meals at his local restaurant, which we have all been to previously.
Oh, was it that one?
It was.
Oh, that was such a good night, wasn't it?
So we are allowed back.
Good. I was worried, I'll be honest with you.
That's right, yeah. But no, it's all been repaired, and we're back in there, so that's great.
Very good. Very good indeed. Repaired. Sorry, I missed that on the first wave. Oh dear, never mind. So yes, sadly we don't have an Armando with us today, but he says, frantically looking for the right button, he has sent us his very good excuse. Here we go.
Hey guys, greetings from 15,000 feet over the Carolinas. Sorry, I can't be on the show at least on time. I'm going to try to get to the show a little bit later on today. But if I'm not there, it's because I'm doing this right here. So, got some great military stories that we're going to play out. I'm super happy that we finally announced the 400th episode location. That's going to be great. I'm super excited to meet everybody that I haven't met before and kind of see some old faces. Well, not old faces, but young faces. It's been a while. And going over to England, it's going to be myself, Megan, and Maddie. I think at this point Megan's more famous than I am. But really looking forward to seeing everybody coming back over to the UK. It's been a couple years since we've been over there, so just happy to be back there. Either way, if I'm not on the show this week, I'm going to catch you guys in a couple weeks. Next week I'm headed out to flight safety for recurrent training in Dallas, Texas. Friday is actually check ride day, and it's a middle of the night sim, so it's unlikely that I'll be on the show. But either way, I'll see you guys at least 2 weeks down the road. Anyway, cheers. See you later.
Such a show off. As Tony S is saying in the chat room.
Absolutely, yeah. Just describe to the those who are watching or listening. Sorry, if you're watching, obviously you can see what's going on. But
Armando is obviously sent us an amazing video as usual. And at the end of the video, he's making a landing which we refer to, I think, as butter. In the
really?
History, which is the only landings that Armando makes are
well,
butter.
quite absolutely. I expect nothing less from him. But how cool is that? Yeah.
It's like every blooming week, Armando gets that bar and raises it another 15 feet in the air as to how
I know, right?
blinking good he can make his.
Yeah, I know.
Video.
We're very lucky to have him as part of the team. That's the best way to describe it. Yeah, they're very cool. So no Armando this week by the look of it. He was hoping to join us at the start of the show, but unfortunately things haven't worked out quite as we'd hoped. So no Armando this week. And he was mentioning he wasn't able to be on the show next week, and actually we have news about that we'll share with you at the end of the program too.
Yes, and he also mentioned on there as well that you'll get the chance to meet Armando at the 400th.
Seriously, it's worth coming to the 400th literally just for that. Absolutely, because the guy is a legend.
Honestly, but on the note, a quick note on that. We'll post all the details on our Facebook page as well at some point over this weekend. I will, but we have had a really good reply or response to our 400th. We've got loads of people who are either flying in, driving in, bussing in, carring in, parachuting in, which will be Steph, to our 400th show. So big thanks to everyone.
Parachuting in over London. Wow. Okay.
Honestly, I wouldn't put it past Steph. Don't laugh, because she probably will do.
No, I wouldn't put it past her to run from Heathrow to the venue. That wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form.
So that's next year. For those of you who missed last week, that's next year on the 26th of February. Next year, that's the 26th. That's a Saturday. We'll do the live show, and the team will be there on the 25th, which is a Friday. And for those of you who are going to be attending and joining us on the February the 26th, Nev has a very special code for the hotel, which he can send to you. And if you want a nice little reduction off the room rate for your stay with us at the hotel, and I will just point out, this hotel is not. This ain't no Holiday Inn or Premier Inn or Days Inn or Inn. It is a very nice hotel indeed. And Nev, you secured a very nice little discount for us, Nev. So well done.
Yes, not bad at all. It does only apply up until the 14th of January. So when you get your email back from us to confirm your attendance, all the details will be in there. But my suggestion is book early to avoid disappointment.
Yes. Absolutely, yeah. On all levels, because we do have a capacity as well, and once we've reached that capacity, we can't take any more, basically. So if you'd like to come, get in touch sooner rather than later. Loads of people have got in touch, as Carlos said already. Make sure you get your interest registered ASAP, basically. ASAP.
I can confirm. I'm not going to mention names, but we do have a quite good contingency of people coming in from the US.
Oh, do we? Oh, very cool.
Yes.
Okay.
So that'll be, not going to mention any names.
Oh, okay. Right. Fair enough.
But anyway, let's do some commercial news, shall we, guys?
Okay.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Let's go. So, kicking off this first news story this week, and Nev picked up on this one this week, actually. Well done, Nev. This we brought in from the Av Herald, or avherald.com, Simon's great site. If you haven't already looked at it, AV Herald is one to put on your bookmarks on your desktop. This is Ryanair, and I've got a Ryanair story to kick off with tonight, which makes a change. And Ryanair have been doing what a certain BA flight 009 or BA flight 9 done, how many years ago, Nev?
Oh gosh, you put me on the hop there. I'll look it up in a second.
I think it's 20 odd years ago. But anyway, so a Ryanair 737-800 near Tenerife on October the 11th had engine trouble after flying through volcanic ash. So a Ryanair 737-800 registration Echo India Echo November Papa, performing flight FR 8179 from Tenerife south to Brussels in Belgium, was climbing through flight level 60 feet out of Tenerife's runway 07 when the crew turned right to avoid an ash cloud. Initially continuing the climb over the island of Gran Canaria, the aircraft turned back onto course to the north. Climbing through flight level 220, the crew stopped the climb, however, and decided to declare an emergency to return to Tenerife due to problems with both engines. The aircraft entered a hold at flight level 120 in the clear south of Fuerteventura, and the island subsequently landed, or the aircraft landed safely on the island on Tenerife's south runway 07 2 hours after departure. Passengers reported a lot of emergency vehicles were waiting for the aircraft. Apparently, both engines had ingested ash from the volcano Cumbre Vieja on La Palma, around 75 nautical miles northwest of Tenerife South Airport. A replacement 737, Echo India, Echo Golf Delta, reached Charoli with a delay of 6.5 hours. The occurrence aircraft itself is still on the ground at Tenerife 42 hours after landing back. On October the 15th, Ryanair stated this Ryanair flight from Tenerife South to Brussels diverted back to Tenerife South Airport due to a minor technical issue. There was no encounter with volcanic ash. After landing normally, passengers were transferred to another aircraft which departed from Tenerife South at 11 a.m. 11 minutes past midnight local time. So, Nev, how many years ago was it? The BA?
1982 was the BA 747 encounter with volcanic ash. I don't understand this story because on the one hand it says due to ingestion of volcanic ash, and then later on in the story it says there was no volcanic ash being induced into the engine, so I don't understand.
Also, the word minor technical issue bothers me a little bit.
Well, can I just say that this volcano has been known about for a very long time. Of course, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to Fuerteventura, and wouldn't it be typical if it went off and started going across that part of the Canary Islands as well? But that's a moot point. Just a top tip from your Uncle Nev. Don't fly through volcanic ash in any kind of aircraft.
Okay. Even if it's a 737, especially if it's a 737.
In anything.
The BA9 guys had 4 engines, but they lost all those, didn't they, Nev?
True.
Yes, and they got all 4 back, and then I think the number 1 engine started to overheat, but then back on 3 engines. But nonetheless, this is not great stuff. And if you can remember the Icelandic volcano, which I can't even begin to pronounce, that had major closure of airspace
for a long time.
Of course, from the US to Europe as well. That was a massive deal.
And it went on for a long time as well, didn't it?
Yeah. I was talking to Captain Nick last night actually about this, and he was saying they were stuck in Boston for 9 days because they couldn't get back. You can imagine crew entertainment, can't you? Once they were stuck there for
I can imagine
that amount of time.
I suppose a couple of days delay you can sort of make the best of it, but once you get past like 5 or 6 days, I remember there was if you listen to the radio here in the UK, there's a chap by the name of Chris Moyles, who is a radio DJ here in the UK. He was doing the Radio 1 breakfast show at the time, and because of the Icelandic cloud that Nev is referring to there, was stuck in New York for a very, very long time and didn't think that they were actually going to be able to get, they were looking at ferries and all sorts because they were never going to get him there in time. What's that? What's Micah saying?
Oh, no, it's something I missed in the chat room earlier. I didn't see it. Tony S. put that he mentioned Nev when he was booking the hotel for the 400th, and they added 20%.
Did they? Right. Okay.
Yeah, there's obviously they've done the risk assessment.
They've decided that's not.
And Lee Davies is saying in the chat room, because He said, Dave, the Icelandic volcano. He said, I have tickled him with that.
Right, good, lovely. Well, I'm glad someone's amused.
It's an easy name for a volcano.
It is,
Why have these?
Why complicate it?
Complicated names. Call them Bob, Dave, or Volcano Stan.
Works in all languages then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll move on to the next story.
This amused me. I like this one.
Yeah, so this is Ryanair again. Now, this one I kind of like. So this is on the Mail Online, obviously, which is where everyone should go for their aviation news. But this is a long story, but it is an interesting one, I think. So basically, travel expert buys every extra in a bid to make flying Ryanair first class. So a flight with Ryanair is many things, but a premium travel experience, it is never listed as one of them. However, what happens when money is thrown at a trip with the low-cost Irish carrier? Well, one travel expert has filmed a fascinating attempt to make a £14 Ryanair flight first class by taking a limo to the airport, buying every possible extra, booking a spare seat next to him on the plane, and drinking fizz. Some of the trip he described as a shambles and verging on a scam, but chunks of the journey were vastly improved, he revealed. The experiment was carried out by Nikki Kelvin, who's the head of the Points Guy UK, who began a journey to Madrid via London Stansted by putting a smart suit and riding in an S-Class Mercedes to the airport using a company called Wheelie. That was £204, by the way. Somebody tot this up as we go. He said the car arrived on time. It was incredibly comfortable with a professional, smartly dressed driver who set the temperature and radio volume to the desired levels and even provided Evian water. Other water companies, of course, are available. He'd paid for fast-track security at the airport, £7, but he said the experience was not premium, with rude staff ushering passengers around. The escape lounge, £22.99, or use priority pass, cheered him up, though. He described this as not the most luxurious, but it was a space to escape from the airport crowds with complimentary food, beverages and comfortable seating. After buying a travel pillow, £14.99, to enhance the comfort in the air, it was time to board, and here the journey went awry. Nikki had paid for priority boarding, £20.85, but said the boarding process itself was a shambles. Priority boarding was ignored, and once you passed through the boarding gate, all passengers were forced to wait on a stairwell for around 15 minutes, with bags in tow, until finally being allowed across the tarmac to board the plane. Now, Nev and Carlos, I don't know if you've... probably not Nev, because he's always on BA, isn't he? But Carlos, I mean, have you ever had to do that, where you've had to wait in the stairwell before they let you on the flight?
Yeah, quite a few times. Actually,
yeah, absolutely. I can say this is not an unusual
It's not
occurrence.
an unusual thing at all.
Indeed.
I've had that. I've had that at Stansted.
Yeah.
A number of times, and also at what was the other one? Luton. We've had it before.
Yeah. Indeed.
And at Southend, we didn't wait in the stairwell, but we were waiting.
Yeah,
outside.
Indeed, in the rain.
In an
adjacent field, absolutely. Anyway, on board the experience improved again, mostly because Nikki had secured seat 1A, there we go, Nev, at the front for £20, paid for the seat next to him to improve the roominess factor, $34.99, and ordered himself a glass of Prosecco, £6, and a hot beef lasagna, £5.10. He told Mail Online Travel, sitting in seat 1A with a free seat next to me felt like I had the best spot on board, being served first, getting off the plane first, and having pretty much unlimited legroom and space was a huge bonus. The Prosecco, meanwhile, was about as fancy as it got on board, and it was warm and served in a plastic cup, therefore was not that enjoyable, but the beef lasagna was delicious. And the verdict: we asked Nikki how his experience stacked up against, say, paying for a business class trip with BA. He said some elements were worth the money and some were verging on a scam. The luxury transport to the airport set the journey off to a wonderful start, but of course you could only take a luxury car when flying, but you could take a luxury car when flying with any airline. You would have a better time in some BA lounges flying business class, and you would also enjoy cold champagne and better food by Do & Co on board. Do & Co, is that the
Do & Co?
Do & Co.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Although although to my taste buds, the lasagna was a winner. Paying for a front row seat and the free seat next to me, assuming this can be bought for a reasonable price, created true value for me, and I would definitely recommend this as a key way to greatly improve the experience flying Ryanair. Even in British Airways, European business class, Club Europe, except for the front row, you are sitting in the same seats as economy passengers, although the middle seat is automatically kept free. The priority boarding option in my case was a complete waste of money and not honoured by the airline. Overall, it will come down to price. If you want a truly premium experience, you're unlikely to match the overall BA British business class experience to a low-cost airline, and low-cost airlines like Ryanair will remain the choice for primarily who lead by cost. Now, I have to say, when we came back, so I flew to Ireland, Northern Ireland, into Belfast with EasyJet, and it was a very, very full plane going out, but coming home, there was a seat next between me and my mum. And I must say, having that extra seat was a real sort of, like, you had somewhere to put things, and sort of, you could sort of, you didn't have to, you could lift the armrest up and have a little bit more room to sort of wiggle about and things like that once you got underway. So I do kind of get that. But I mean, Nev, I can't see you doing this as a way of sort of, seat one A on
This is not even vocabulary I understand, I'm afraid.
No.
So, sorry about that. But I have just totted all that up.
Okay, good.
Which you asked us to. And
yes.
It comes to £344
right.
and 5 pence.
Okay.
Yeah.
So actually that compares quite well then. If you were going to be flying, say, doing a similar trip with BA and in business class, obviously it'd be significantly more than that.
Well, what was the route again? I didn't.
I think it was. I want to say Madrid. I might be wrong.
Yes, I mean that's not far off actually.
Okay,
that's not far off. Yeah.
Although there wasn't the swanky car to the airport, I guess.
No. But also, I must say, as always, airline fares are a mystery to me completely. I've just booked a flight to Stockholm for later in November. To Stockholm Arlanda, the main airport, with BA, and it was £151 in economy. And I've just come back from Edinburgh on Tuesday, and it was £287. So obviously you don't pay by the mile. Do you?
No, you do
you
not.
pay by the popularity of the route, probably.
True that. Yes.
Yes, there we are.
Yeah, it's I mean, a fun experiment, but let's be honest, people aren't going to worry about it, are they? Let's be brutally honest here. Never mind.
Now, Nev, your next story is regarding your chosen airline and a slight delay.
Yes, this is an interesting one. It's on the independent.co.uk, and it says passengers on a British Airways flight had to spend the entire night on the plane on the tarmac during a diversion that lasted for 22 hours. Flight BA31 from London Heathrow to Hong Kong on the 8th of October had made the 11-hour journey without a hitch until the approach into Hong Kong. Tropical storms thwarted 2 attempts to land the Boeing 777 aircraft before a plan B had to be deployed and the flight diverted into Manila in the Philippines, which was 700 miles away. The plane touched down 2 hours later, but there were further complications. A return to Hong Kong wasn't possible as the storms continued, whilst COVID restrictions meant most of the passengers were not eligible to enter the Philippines. The result was that all travellers and crew had to spend the night on board. The flight landed at 4 p.m. local time on Saturday and didn't take off again for Hong Kong until 10 a.m. on Sunday, meaning passengers were stuck on the ground for 18 hours. They finally arrived in Hong Kong at 12 p.m, following one more aborted landing and go around before touching down approximately 22 hours behind schedule and 33 hours after first leaving London. A video shared on social media shows passengers bursting into applause and cheering when the plane landed in Hong Kong. A BA spokesman told The Independent, like other airlines, our flight diverted to Manila due to tropical storm Lionrock. It later safely landed in Hong Kong. We cared for our customers on board the aircraft and apologised for the inconvenience. Passengers on board praised BA cabin crew for the way that they'd handled the situation. Thank you all, tweeted one person. Applause in Hong Kong for BA's fantastic crew on BA 31. 2021. Another commented, the crew were all brilliant and handled everything professionally, and we were stuck in the same situation. Kudos to British Airways. So that was nice. Now, I just wondered how the crew managed their situation with flight time limitations and stuff like that. But of course, if they did get some sleep, because obviously there are probably crew rest areas on the 777 for that kind of length of flight, I would imagine. So they probably were able to get some rest, and those lucky people in club or first class would have had those nice lie flat beds. But the great unwashed further back wouldn't have.
I was going to say, if you're in business class or first, Nev, you're thinking, oh, delay, oh, fair enough.
Another glass of champagne. Don't mind if I do.
Seat back. Yeah.
Yes, Lee Davis makes quite a good point here, I would say. Where he says,
I suspect they may well.
Bet the toilets were busy on arrival.
Quite, indeed.
Yes, that's right.
Oh dear! As I say, they did the best in a bad situation.
They've done the best in a bad situation. Yeah.
That's all we can say on that, I guess.
I did see there was on one of the news feeds there was a screenshot of the satellite picture of that storm, and it did look rather
angry,
stormy.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
I will say.
Good.
So let's have a look at the next story. This is moving all the way over to Australia for the next story, and a new. Where do all these new airlines keep coming? Every week we're covering a story about a new airline. So a new budget airline, Bonza, aims to fill gap in Australia routes. Do I put on an Australian accent?
No, but you could mention the two people who sent the story in for it.
Oh, right, okay. So we're going to say thank you to Ray Davis and Jacob Darlington Brown for sending in this story to us. And Bonza Airways. So a new ultra-low-cost domestic airline, Bonza, is hoping to add to the post-lockdown boom in air travel with a raft of services to destinations currently being neglected by existing airlines. Bonza has announced its plan to enter the Australian domestic market and begin flights by early 2022. Industry analysts believe the airline's target of linking budget-conscious passengers to tourist destinations will fill a gap in the market if the airline receives regulatory approval. Empty check-in areas at Sydney Airport. Australian travellers were warned of potential airfare hikes as Watchdog puts airports on notice. On Tuesday this week, a Bonza chief executive, Tim Jordan, sent out expressions of interest to 46 airports across all states and territories, seeking regions and cities to step forward as to be a part of the initial route network. Jordan, a seasoned aviation figure and former executive of Virgin Blue, told Guardian Australia that Bonza would aim to rival the low ticket prices sold by the likes of EasyJet and Ryanair on short-haul routes. He likened his plan for Bonza to the model of a British carrier like Jet2, which he said had successfully competed with EasyJet and Ryanair here in the UK on price, but focused mostly on leisure destinations rather than frequent services between capital cities, something like he would love to mimic in Australia. He said that our product will not appeal to the business traveller. There won't be multiple frequencies a day. You can choose from those who need to return later that day. He said it'll be more like 3 or 4 frequencies en route per week. This allows us to fly routes that weren't there currently, non-stop services between 2 points, and we won't be stealing traffic from other airlines. We'll be growing in demand for domestic trips, and more or half the markets we will operate, and no other carrier currently flies. So Australia's aviation landscape has changed over the course of the pandemic, with the exit of low-cost carrier Tiger after its parent company Virgin went through an administration process and itself repositioned toward the lower end of the market, and the expansion of Rex to fly on routes for 2 major capital cities. Government supports were also introduced and extended during the Delta lockdowns to keep skilled workers employed and ensure airlines were ready to resume flying when the borders opened. Yeah, I mean, we haven't got a picture. I'd like to see what their livery is like, actually, because it's bound to be something bright, I'd imagine, as a low-cost carrier in Australia.
It's a
good idea.
Hang on, I found a picture. Hang on, let me.
Oh, you found a picture?
Yeah. Let me see if I can get it up. This is where we missed John, because obviously this would have all been pre-done for us.
I think we are lucky. Oh, there we go. Oh, lovely colour.
Yeah, nice purple in colour.
Just need the milker cow to be on the side of that.
I'm sorry, what?
Let's go with that. With the lilac.
You're everything all right, Carlos?
Yeah. I think a lot of people assume that every country has its own batch of low cost carriers. I mean, we are lucky here in the UK that we do have Ryanair, EasyJet, Jet2, and a couple of other little low cost carriers which are more expensive than ever. But not every country or not every big country around the world has a massive choice of low cost carriers to choose from. So.
Indeed.
And Australia is a very big country.
It is indeed. And because of its size, it sort of makes sense to have like a domestic sort of network in it. Really, I mean, in the States, it's very much commonplace, isn't it? Very few people drive the huge distances. From what flying domestically is part of the course, isn't it? In the States, usually. Lee Davis is saying to you, Never. I still think about that Channel 4 program Bonsai. I used to love that on a Friday. Was it Friday nights? I think you used to come home from the pub.
Yes, it was.
You come home on a Friday night after a night out at the pub, and there'd be
Channel 4.
Place bets now. Yeah,
that's it. Place our bet now.
No, stop it.
Oh, I love that. Anyway, next one, Matt, is for you. This is Ryanair and blackmail being done here.
Yes, absolutely. Now, this is a long story, so I apologise for this in advance, but this really caught my eye. This says the Ryanair passengers accuse airline of blackmail after being banned from flying. So furious Ryanair passengers have accused the budget airline of blackmail after it apparently blocked passengers from taking flights over disputed refunds. The customers of the Irish low-cost airline claim that they have been barred from Ryanair flights until they repay money refunded for trips missed during the COVID pandemic. Ryanair customers say that the airline refused to refund them for flights they backed out of due to advice at the time by Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, not to travel. They turned to credit card chargebacks, a function where credit and debit card users can reverse a disputed transaction to reclaim their money. But when the same customers attempted to book new flights through the budget carrier, the airline refused to let them fly until they paid back the cash, a money-saving expert investigation has found. Some customers even claimed that they were met with payment demands at check-in just hours before they were due to fly. Personal finance experts have described the decision to block people from flying due to the refund row as outrageous, while a Ryanair customer took to social media to accuse the budget airline of blackmail. But Ryanair has defended the decision, saying that it has the right to stop passengers from flying if they owe the company money. The row between the airline and customers is over the chargeback function available through payment cards. Customers of certain credit card firms such as Amex, MasterCard and Visa can use chargeback to reclaim disputed payments made on their debit, credit and charge cards. The process is usually used when a company refuses a refund. If requested, the card company will step in to claim the money back from the supplier's bank. The function is particularly useful for, apologies for Alfie there, the function is particularly useful for customers when a company goes under in the time between payment and delivery of goods or services, because the money is usually still recoverable from the supplier's bank, though it is not always guaranteed. But in order to use chargeback, you must prove that you have tried to get a refund first and that your request has been refused. Customers must submit a claim within 120 days of purchase or payment for the service, and it is particularly useful when an item or service costs under £100, beyond which the more powerful and legally backed Section 75 of the Consumer Credit Act is available. Rapidly evolving travel policy earlier this year left some holidaymakers with tough decisions to make over whether to fly. Though some countries were designated as a green or an amber on the Department for Transport's travel list, separate FCDO guidance at times was not to fly to these countries, often invalidating travel insurances. It meant that while customers felt compelled not to travel, the flights still went ahead. And Ryanair's terms and conditions state it does not refund customers who choose of their own accord not to travel on flights that are still going ahead. The Competitions and Markets Authority, the CMA, which recently dropped an investigation into Ryanair and British Airways over complaints they refused to give refunds for missed flights in the COVID pandemic, says the airline passengers are not guaranteed refunds for flights when an FCDO warning is in place. But it says such refunds are not impossible. British Airways, EasyJet, Jet2 and Virgin Atlantic told passengers who miss such flights they can rebook or, in some cases, request a voucher in this scenario. However, some customers who wanted full cash refunds utilised chargeback to reclaim the money for missed flights. Now the company are demanding the money back from customers in order to get them to continue using Ryanair. Travel solicitors Kobe Benson from Bott & Co and Colin Murphy from Lay Day told money-saving expert that the airline was wrong to ban passengers from flying unless they paid the money back. He said the question is whether or not there were reasonable grounds to deny the boarding, and in this case, I don't think there are. The story goes on, but one of the things that is quite fascinating to me here is another article actually that I was reading about this, more or less sort of, I won't mention the bank, but the article that I was reading more or less sort of accepted that they were in the wrong to have been giving the refunds back, because they're only supposed to have done that when it was where it was like the flight had been cancelled. So therefore, they paid for a service that hadn't been provided, as where some refunds have been given basically when that wasn't the case. I mean, I don't know. Well, however you look at it, I suppose, it's a bit of a PR disaster, isn't it? However you dress it up.
Here's something that you thought you'd never hear me say.
Yes.
In that I have a little bit of sympathy with Ryanair.
Yes.
On this one, because there are exceptional circumstances going
Absolutely.
on. And everybody's situation is slightly different as well.
Yeah.
Mistakes probably have been made at some point.
Yeah.
But obviously Ryanair, and not just Ryanair, but many other carriers as well, need to keep the cash inside the company and not give it away. So alternative bookings were always the preference to a refund. Something's clearly gone wrong here, but I have to say it's not quite as clear cut as I don't think that some of the legal profession are making out here.
Indeed. And actually, I think it's fair to say that even Ryanair, who, let's be honest, are not, they don't give much away, let's put it that way. But I mean, even Ryanair have been giving you the opportunity to change your flight for no additional fees or costs. And I think that's come to an end now, hasn't it? But certainly at the period that they're talking here, where you could have easily had a voucher to book another flight rather than reclaim your money. I do think, as I say, I'm with you very much on that one. I think it's been a little bit unfair on a lot of the airlines, isn't it, really? Because especially with people like Ryanair, I mean, if it was a small low-cost carrier or something like that, you could almost kind of understand it. But with someone like Ryanair and with someone like BA, the chance of them going bust is quite slim. I won't say it's impossible, because nothing's impossible. But in this scenario, they're big enough companies behind it that they weren't going to go bust. So the voucher that they gave you is going to remain valid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's going to be ongoing litigation and goodness knows what else, isn't there, for some time. But I'm really hopeful that we're over the worst of the pandemic. And obviously there are still exceptional things going on. But the airlines need to retain the money in the company as far as they can, I think.
Yeah. But as I say, I think it telling that one of the banks who's been involved in all this sort of basically admitted that they were giving refunds when perhaps they shouldn't have been. Anyway, there we go. So the next story is with you, Nev.
Yes, it's on the businessinsider.com. This is an interesting one. It says that Southwest's spiderweb-like route map is why flights as far as California were cancelled due to weather in Florida. This is how it works. And the worst of Southwest Airlines Columbus Day weekend meltdown appears to be over as cancellations are dwindling. But as of Thursday morning, only 30 flights have been cancelled for the day, according to flight tracking company FlightAware, down from thousands in the combined days prior. But the weekend's events have left some flyers in regions as far as the West Coast wondering why their flights were cancelled when bad weather and air traffic control issues in Florida were initially to blame. The reason traces back to how Southwest schedules flights across its nationwide route network that differ from many of its competitors. Southwest operates a very complex spider web-like point-to-point route network, says Henry Hartfeld, who's a travel industry analyst and president of the Atmosphere Research Group. A flight, let's say, from Florida to California may make multiple stops along the way, a bit like the proverbial puddle jumper. The point-to-point strategy has proved effective in allowing the airline to serve a greater number of US cities without having to contract regional airlines, as is the default of the major airlines when serving low-demand markets. Meltdowns like the one experienced over Columbus Day weekend are few and far between. Major carriers such as American Airlines, Delta and United alternatively operate what is known as a hub-and-spoke route network. Each airline has a handful of hubs across the US from where flights will usually arrive or depart. Southwest, whilst having bases at airports across the US, will send aircraft hopscotching across the country to its international destinations. Examples of its point-to-point routes include Sacramento, California to Ontario, California, Raleigh to Tampa, Florida, and Long Island, New York to West Palm Beach, Florida. If there is bad weather in Florida and a flight is cancelled, it can cascade down, and that flight affects other flights between points that are hundreds or perhaps thousands of miles away from where the bad weather took place, he says. Southwest told Insider magazine that the event was exacerbated by the conservative approach to staffing that resulted from the pandemic. Going forward, we're continually assessing our operational plan with staffing in mind, says a Southwest spokesman. We're continuing to aggressively hire. We've reduced our planned flying through this lens in the past, and we won't hesitate to do it again. We want to give our people maximum flexibility to recover during these wider scale disruptions. Southwest Airlines CEO Gary Kelly publicly apologised on the national morning TV show. Well, I didn't actually know that. I didn't realise how Southwest operated their aircraft in that way. And obviously, when the weather's great, it's all fine.
Works fine.
We do know that the continent of North America does have this habit of having big weather moments. And that's what messed this one up.
Indeed. In fact, actually, Micah is saying in the chat room here, he's saying that here's another communication disaster. Southwest Airlines tried to blame air traffic control and weather, because if that were the case, they would not be required to issue refunds. It's that word again. Yeah, it is that word again. It's being that their dispatch system failed, that they were actually responsible but refused to take the responsibility. But yeah, I don't know. You do worry sometimes that a lot of airlines, even your favourite airlines, sometimes they have much to learn in the world of PR, don't they?
Oh yes, yeah.
And as we all know, PR and social media is king.
It is nowadays, isn't it? There's no two ways about that.
When it comes to passengers and customers.
Indeed. We better keep moving, because I notice we've got quite a lot of stories and we're rapidly
running
out of time.
Yes, this is over on foxbusiness.com, and Boeing 787 Dreamliner has a new problem involving titanium parts. Ooh. So Boeing is dealing with a new defect on its 787 Dreamliner, the latest in a series of production slip-ups that have delayed aircraft deliveries and drawn increased US government scrutiny. The new problem involves certain titanium parts that were weaker than they should be on 787s built over the last 3 years. People familiar with the matter said the discovery is among other Dreamliner snafus that have left Boeing stuck with more than $25 billion worth of the jets in its inventory. The finding is fresh evidence that the plane maker is still trying to fix its manufacturing operation, despite nearly a 2-year push by Chief Executive David Calhoun. to restore Boeing's reputation for building quality jets. In addition, the FAA is investigating Boeing's quality control, and the company acknowledged that it hasn't solved the problem of junk left over from the production process, such as 2 empty tequila mini bottles, as we featured a few weeks back in a story that were found on one of the new Air Force One jets that was under construction. Boeing spokesman said the company is making progress on improving production and is raising its own standards despite operational interruptions. He said that we have strengthened our focus on quality and constantly encourage all members of our teams and supply chains to raise any issues that need attention, the spokesman said. When the issues are raised, that is an indication that these efforts are working. Boeing 787's woes came as the FAA examines a series of alleged quality control lapses across Boeing's commercial airplane unit, according to an 18th of August agency letter and people familiar with the probe. The agency has claimed that Boeing allowed unqualified personnel to sign off on quality checks or otherwise failed to comply and follow company FAA guidelines. The Dreamliner new problem and FAA's investigation hadn't been reported before, and the Boeing spokesperson said the titanium issue was discovered by the company as part of a continuing audit as the company hones its quality management system. Boeing and its regulators have determined that the new titanium issue doesn't pose an urgent safety risk. Well, any safety risk is bad to planes currently flying. People familiar with the matter said the company performed immediate repairs to 2 undelivered aircraft that would have been grounded because they contained a high number of the weak parts. These people said the company expects to resume handing over the wide-body jets in November this year at the earliest, later than previously anticipated, and people familiar with the company's plans said. So, yeah, I mean, it's not really a word you sort of tend to put with titanium, is it, sort of weakness? Because normally things that are built out of titanium are blooming strong.
Usually.
But honestly, I'd imagine just, I don't know, Boeing is just having a pretty bad...
They're having a pretty bad decade. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Certainly had a pretty rubbishy last 3 years.
I mean, you guys know, I get the Airliner World magazine every month, and they put the Airbus and Boeing sales figures in there each month in the publication, and it's so weird. Like for the last year, more than a year now, that the delivery figures for Airbus are up here, and the Boeing delivery figures are down here, whereas it used to be completely opposite. Before, all this. So,
indeed.
Anyway, so Nev, this is interesting news, I'll say, for anyone living in the US and who wants to go to España.
Yes. Is this not Matt's story?
I thought it was my story as well.
Or is this yours, Matt? Sorry.
Sorry about that. That's all right. No,
I need to scroll down further.
Fair enough. Okay, so... yeah, indeed. Anyway, United announces routes
I know Nev loves Spain.
Well, quite, absolutely. United announces routes to Amman, Mallorca, Bergen, among others. So yesterday, United Airlines released a video full of clues as to where their next group of international routes would be set to go. The airline built much anticipation around this announcement, and the day has finally arrived for the airline to officially announce these new routes. So we'll go through some of them very quickly. So that Washington, as I like to call it, Dulles Airport to Amman in Jordan. United plans to fly once daily from Washington International Airport to Amman. This is the carrier's first Middle Eastern flight besides Tel Aviv since pulling out of Dubai and Kuwait some years back. This route is set to be operated 3 times weekly using the airline's Boeing 787-8 aircraft beginning the 5th of May next year. Next, we're off to Portugal. This is Newark to the Azores in Portugal. With United's recent increase in flights to the Iberian Peninsula, it was only a matter of time before new routes were added. In addition to Porto and Lisbon, United Airlines will also be flying to the Azores Islands beginning the 13th of May next year. This route will operate thrice weekly. Oh, I haven't heard that word in a long time. Thrice weekly, year-round, and on a daily basis between June and August of 2022. Next, Next, it's New York to Tenerife, the Canary Islands, obviously in Spain. European travel to the Canary Islands has been steadily increasing ever since the onset of the pandemic, as its distance from the mainland of Europe is not very far. United is joining the fun in transporting passengers to this travel destination that have been considerably rising in popularity. Flights will operate 3 times weekly beginning the 2nd of June 2022. Next, we're off to Norway. This flight is interesting, especially considering United's only flight to the Scandinavian region is to Stockholm. This new expansion means greater European connectivity, checking off another country from United's list. Similar to their Stockholm flights, the airline will utilise a Boeing 757 on this route. Flights are set to operate 3 times per week beginning the 20th of May. Majorca in Spain. American travel to Palma de Mallorca has only increased in recent years, and the only way to fly to the island was via connections in Europe. Now, United has enabled passengers to fly non-stop with the introduction of flights straight to the Spanish island. Flights are set to begin on the 9th of June. 3 times a week for that one. Next, it's Denver to Munich in Germany. United flies to Munich from almost every other hub, so it was only a matter of time until this flight resumed. This edition offers United Airlines frequent flyers one more option to fly back to the American mainland. Denver's European connectivity is also somewhat lacking, and the announcement of this route makes Germany a much more viable destination. This daily service is set to begin in April. So Chicago to Milan is next. In Italy, of course, United already flies to Milan from Newark, and with flights leaving full fairly frequently, it seems fair that another route has been added. Increased connectivity means that passengers can now fly to Venice, Milan, Naples and Rome from both Newark, Chicago and Washington Dulles. This daily service to Milan is set to begin in May. So pandemic disruptions, in addition to the above routes, United will also be adding services to the following destinations. These routes were announced prior to the pandemic but were not able to begin. So it's Newark to Tokyo, that's the 26th of March. Los Angeles to Tokyo, that's on the 26th of March as well. Washington to Tokyo, that's also the 26th of March. Chicago to Zurich, that's beginning on the 23rd of April. Newark to Nice, beginning on the 29th of April, and San Francisco to Bangalore, that begins on the 26th of May. I mean, there is a lot of sort of hope almost that there is perhaps light at the end of the tunnel at long last.
Well, yes, and of course we've just heard this week that looks like flights to the US from the UK are starting from the 8th of November, and as of the 22nd of this month, they're stopping the requirement for PCR testing. And
I saw that.
UK. So we are getting there, but it's taken, between 18 months and 2 years, isn't it? But I think we're not there yet. There's still more. Having said all that, it's good to see that folks are laying on more flights and on more routes. So that's
it's definitely a step in the right direction, isn't it? You're sort of beginning to feel like there's things are definitely picking up a bit. And I mean, certainly, again, Stansted that I was in, as I say, a couple of weeks ago now, it certainly wasn't as busy as we're used to seeing Stansted at a, sort of 10:30, I'd say, especially at the weekend, is quite a peak time for people to be flying off to places. It wasn't at the levels, I've been in the departure lounge there where there is literally standing room only, there were still the odd seats there and there, but definitely getting there now. I don't know, was it Heathrow that you flew from this week, Nev? How did that compare?
Quick Edinburgh trip. T5 at Heathrow was very busy, as was Edinburgh Airport as well, actually. It's definitely getting there. And I think probably there still aren't quite the number of flights that there were, so they're cramming more people onto fewer flights. But nonetheless, the demand for travel, both for business, for holiday, but also think about those folks that haven't been able to see their relations. People that have been sick, and they've had this problem where they just cannot get to see them. So I think that's a good sign.
A driving factor, definitely. Absolutely.
I just can't get my head around being in Mallorca and seeing a United Airlines flight aircraft on the tarmac next to EasyJet or a Ryanair.
Or a Jet 2 or something,
it's weird, Anyway, moving on to the next story, Nev, and we're always talking about hot air on this show, and but this story is all a bit hydrogen.
It is, yes, and it's on aerotime.aero, and it says that hydrogen-powered ATR 72 gets a launch customer. ASL Aviation Holdings, which is an Irish-based firm, intends to purchase up to 10 conversion kits to make their ATR 72 freighters run on hydrogen. The company has signed a letter of intent with Universal Hydrogen, becoming the launch customer for the new type of vehicle. According to a press release, the converted ATR 72s are going to be used for cargo transportation. In addition to conversion kits, ASL will receive one already converted aircraft for tests. Universal Hydrogen plans to manufacture a conversion kit that would allow existing models of the turboprop aircraft to run on hydrogen. The company also advertises its intention to create and maintain infrastructure for distributing the new type of fuel. According to the firm, converting aircraft run on hydrogen not only greatly reduces carbon emissions, but also improves their performance and reduces operational costs. In recent years, there have been numerous announcements of investments into research and development of hydrogen-powered aircraft. Whilst the use of such fuel remains challenging, industry experts expect the hydrogen aircraft market to reach over $174 billion by 2040. So this is a new type of fuel and propulsion system that's been talked about for a long time now, and gradually we're seeing them introduced into certain kinds of operations, aren't we? So
absolutely,
really interesting. Really interesting.
It's good. It's exciting times.
It's definitely one to watch, isn't it? It's all airlines are being encouraged to find greener ways of sort of transporting us around. And I mean, obviously in the dream scenario, obviously will be, sort of electric power, therefore, potentially solar powered, etc., etc. But, to be looking for some interim solution, I just think is brilliant.
This next one is a sad story, the last story in the commercial news this week. And this one comes to us from MSN.com. And 16 people sadly lost their lives after a parachute aircraft crashes in Russia. So 16 people were killed after an aircraft carrying parachutists crashed in central Russia last Sunday, the emergencies ministry said. The L410 aircraft carrying 22 people crashed at around 9:23 a.m. local time during a flight over the Republic of Tatarstan. The ministry said on its Telegram channel. 6 people were rescued, but sadly 16 people lost their lives, the ministry said. Earlier, they'd said that 15 people had died and the aircraft was carrying 23 people, but obviously the figures were adjusted. Images published by the ministry showed the aircraft broken in half with a severely damaged nose section. The 6 survivors were hospitalized, and the local health ministry told the Interfax news agency of this. Tatarstan head Rustam Minakhanov was traveling to the scene of the crash. A statement said on his website. According to Interfax, the plane belonged to the Voluntary Service for Assistance to the Army, Aviation and Navy of Russia. Well, that's a mouthful. Which describes itself as a sports and defense organization. The head of the organization's regional branch said the parachuting club that organized the flight was not to blame. He said that we are the best and we are among the top 5 clubs, apparently, he told the news agency, adding that the club had hosted European World Championships. The Czech-built L410 aircraft was one of the 2 planes used by the club, according to its website. The 2 L410 planes suffered, or 2 of the L410 planes suffered fatal accidents in Russia earlier this year, leaving a total of 8 people dead. Russia was notorious for plane accidents, but has improved its air traffic safety record in recent years, with major airlines switching from Soviet-built aircraft to modern jets. But poor aircraft maintenance and lax safety standards still lead to frequent accidents in far-flung regions of Russia involving light aircraft, with occasional large-scale tragedies. It's very sad indeed These people obviously out for their parachute jump, and this had to happen. I mean, if I had to say, I would have to say technical, mechanical issue. But
isn't it interesting, considering the considerable loss of life here? I don't remember reading or seeing this in any regular news channel. I mean, obviously the specialist aviation press will have covered it, but 16 people losing their life in this situation, you really thought that the regular news channels would have picked up on this.
Is it because of where it took place, perhaps?
Oh, I mean, of course, if it had happened in, Frankfurt, Paris, London,
New York, wherever,
or whatever, or major US city, or Australian, possibly, yes. But it's strange, isn't it? That,
sad, isn't it? Really,
things like this are just really underreported. I think.
I just typed in Nev actually on Aviation Herald L410. And it's surprising just how many incidents and accidents there are involving this particular aircraft. Yeah, there's quite an extensive page.
But then, in defence of this aircraft, I suspect that if you typed in, the Cessna Caravan, I dare say you probably find similar levels of, incident, if you see what I mean. And I guess, is there a strong argument that perhaps some of these problems are because of the type of work these particular aircraft are doing? I mean, I know nothing. I don't have enough knowledge to talk in any form of authority, but my gut reaction, if you like, would be based on that.
There's quite a few of these built. These first flew in 1969, introduced into service in 1970. They built just over 1,200 of these were built in service. But they're they are quite a bit bigger than your usual kind of standard Cessna Caravan inside. Actually, these particular aircraft.
Right. Okay. So more people potentially inside.
Yeah. They are twin engine, 2 props.
Okay.
But yeah, they're quite a lot bigger. But it's a sad story, and it's not a nice story at all.
It's not the Anne Finley we would normally look for, but we felt it important it be covered anyway. Now, Nev, you were involved in a fantastic interview series that we're very proud to be running here, and just some details on that for our next part.
Yes, well, this is part 3 of the Mike Wildman interview. If you remember that Captain Nick was talking to Mike about his aviation career, his commercial flying, his military flying, and of course he is an amputee. And when we left the interview on the last part, Nick started to get into some of the detail about that. So let's have a listen to what Mike's situation is now.
So you've made the decision, and into hospital. Any last minute nerves? I'm sure there were.
Of course, I was. But what you can remember is I was in terrible pain as well. So this wasn't like waking up in the morning and my God, I've had a crash and I've lost my leg. This was, well, hopefully this is going to give me a chance to have another life, which it has. So yeah,
absolutely.
Also, one thing I didn't mention is. There's a fabulous charity called Airability, which is on my jacket here somewhere, which its remit is to provide flying opportunities to disabled people, either as pilots or as passengers or anything else. I went to see them even before I'd had the amputation, so I still had 2 legs at that stage. Mike Miller-Smith, who was in charge of the charity, was very, very enthusiastic. Said they'd get me flying as soon as they could, but they also told me about a project that was coming up where they needed an amputee pilot, and so it meant that I could go into the operation and go into the weeks that followed in hospital with something to look forward to, which is would be another part of the story.
Absolutely, and that must have been quite important to you because you knew you weren't necessarily going to leave flying behind.
Exactly, because there was no guarantee that I'd ever fly an airliner again, and so and made it. It was a huge incentive for me. Yeah.
And Airability, they play a part later on. I'm sure we'll come on to it. Yeah. But so you've woken up from the operation, and what's it like when you look down and you've only got 1 foot?
It is surreal. It's absolutely surreal. And of course you can still feel it. I mean, phantom limb pain is something we'll talk about later on, but even now I can still feel my toes. And, I don't know if you remember when you fly in formation, we talk about, easing out, relax, wiggle your toes, and I still do that when I'm flying. Even to the toe that cuts it. Yeah. So it's a strange thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Your recovery, how long did that take?
Oh, it was very quick. I was in hospital, not long, I think 10 days. Came home, and the defining thing then was to wait for the residual limb, the stump. That obviously it's got a big wound on the bottom, so you've got to wait for that to heal. So that took about 6 weeks. In that time, they measure you up for leg and various bits and pieces. So you're waiting for it to heal and wait for the leg, and in a wheelchair, which is a really frustrating time. But that was only, I think, the operation was January the 6th. I was in the simulator by the start of March at Airability, and I think I flew the PA-28 a week later. So within something like 8 to 10 weeks of my amputation, I was flying again.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So you've already mentioned that you were there as a project manager with Airability, with the aim of doing exactly what?
Well, the Douglas Bader Foundation, which was the charity set up by Sir Douglas Bader's family after he died, and I'm sure some of your audience will know Douglas Bader was a Second World War fighter pilot. He'd lost his legs in a flying accident in about 1933, double amputee, but at the outbreak of the Second World War, he was desperate to get back into the Royal Air Force, and through persistence and sheer bloody willpower, got back to fly for the RAF, flew Spitfires, led both a squadron and a wing, and became a bit of a national treasure. Fighter ace, was shot down. He was a POW, ended up in Colditz. So a remarkable figure, and a real inspiration to disabled people throughout his life. Yeah, so Douglas Bader's family decided they want to extend his legacy, and they decided they'd like to. They had the idea of starting the world's first all-disabled air display team. Never been done before. There's a team called We Fly, who are fantastic guys down in Italy, and they have a couple of guys who are paraplegics, but they fly in a 3-ship with another able-bodied person. So a fully disabled air display team had never been done before. So a bit like Cinderella, through Airability, we had a tryout for all the disabled pilots in the UK.
Wow, how many are there?
There's not that many. I think there were a few missing I've met since then, but I think there were about 20 to 25. There's not that many. It's quite a small sort of gene pool. And we all tried out through Tour Western Flying Club. Tour Western Flying Club is a great flying club, manned by BA captains who have all got
heaps of money.
Well, no, but fast jet backgrounds. Most of them Air Force. Oh, okay. A lot of them were BBMF, and so they gave up their time to come and assess us and then train us. And
excellent.
That was absolutely fabulous. So they came down. We all tried out with close formation in the PA-28s, and eventually they chose 3 of us to fly for the team. And I was fortunate enough to be chosen to lead it. So
brilliant.
That was fantastic.
Brilliant. So who were the other guys on your wing?
Okay, on my right wing was a guy called Alan Robinson, and he is another amputee who had a motorcycle crash, and Alan is an engineer in the Royal Air Force. Oh, right. He's a sergeant a flight sergeant on AWAC squadron at Waddington. Oh, yeah. He crashed a motorbike. Yeah, that's it. He got a flying scholarship through Flying Scholarships for the Disabled, and did his PPL.
Is that another organisation?
That's another organisation.
Oh, right,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, there's a few organisations around there, and they all kind of mesh and fit in. So he got his PPL through them. He then went off and did some pretty wacky microlight flying. He flew up to the Arctic Circle in a microlight.
What?
Yeah, great films of them landing on skis in snow up in Sweden. Really remarkable. So he did that. and then with very little flying, he won another scholarship through Prince Harry's Endeavour Trust, and he was chosen to replicate World War II fighter pilot training. So they gave him, I think, 15 or 20 hours on a Chipmunk to do tailwheel training. I think he did 20 hours on a Harvard for complex aircraft, and then 20 hours on the Spitfire, which he soloed with Boltby Academy down at Goodwood. And he was the first pilots, amputee pilots since Sir Douglas Bader to solo the Spitfire.
Wow.
With about 150 hours. Just absolutely remarkable. So he was chosen, and he was number 2. And the guy on the other wing was a guy called Barry Hobkirk. And Barry had effectively broken his back in a helicopter accident. He was a Chinook pilot. And again, a remarkable guy, because he eventually became paraplegic and continued to fly in the Royal Air Force, non-operationally, but he was on the training squadron and he did various jobs for about 7 or 8 years afterwards as a paraplegic.
Wow, he was still flying the Chinook?
Still flying the Chinook.
Good Lord.
Not many people know that story. So he's a remarkable guy. And he was the number 3. And so we were chosen. Over 2 years we trained with Western Flying Club and eventually got our display authorisations. And we did a display season where I think we displayed at 6 or 8 airfields.
That's quite an achievement, isn't it? Because you've already mentioned, there is no air formation team, anywhere in the world that does displays. So that, for a one-off, first time ever, that's pretty remarkable.
It was fantastic. And we were very proud. I can remember the first show was a bit of a day like this, and it was at Duxford, first display of the season. It was May, and the 25,000 people on the ground. We're holding to the north of the airfield. I think the blades were on, having done, and then we rolled in, and it was a perfect day, and the display all went well. And then we landed and got standing ovation, and I've got to say, it's one of the best days of my life. It was a remarkable achievement. So, yeah, I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely. People say that sometimes, when you close the door, it opens a window. Oh, I love that. The airplane's just peed on the floor.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about this in a moment.
Yes.
Yeah, and you certainly did take advantage of your new life, as it were.
Well, there's no doubt. I was just a very average pilot. There's no way that, had I not lost my leg, I'd be ending up flying air displays. I mean, I have no doubts about that whatsoever. So, yeah, as one door opens, it closes, another one opens. I'm also, I do motivational speaking for Blesma, which is the limbless veterans charity. And I meet all sorts of people that I would never have met if I'd remained, a bipod.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, those displays sort of wound down around 2019?
2019. Of course, COVID came in spring of 2020, and everything stopped. So we had kind of a year on the ground, kicking our heels. I had quite a lot of time off because we haven't talked about that side of things. When I knew that my leg was in a pretty bad way, the writing was on the wall regarding whether I'd be able to continue flying or not. And so I went and got myself qualifications initially as a flying instructor, and then teaching something called MPL, which is the multi-pilot course.
You did this off your own bat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a company called CTC in those days. That's now called L3 Harris. But I went and paid for all my qualifications. Built up my experience, became a type rating instructor on the A320, and then eventually a type rating examiner. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now.
Cool.
So that became a kind of a second career, which I could revert back to after my amputation. But of course that all stopped as well. So I had a year on the ground, basically, where there was not a lot to do. And so, as you do, you get thinking, I think, and I'd always wanted to take Bader's Bus Company to another level, but it was all to do with availability of airplanes, money, and it all kind of stopped. So I spent that year trying to planning and think how could we take this thing further. Talked back to the Bader Foundation again, and they were prepared to forward us some money for training, and got in touch with a friend of mine called Jez Hopkinson, who leads the Yakovlev's displays team here at
How did you know
Pensford.
him?
Well, one thing I didn't tell you is when I had the crash the first time, I ended up managing an air display team with a couple of mates 20 years ago, and we knew him through the air display circuit. So there was that. I don't know if you've heard of a company called Ultimate High.
I heard of it.
Yeah,
yes,
they do corporate air combat experiences and that sort of stuff. Myself and two friends set up Ultimate High 20 years ago. I'm not involved with it anymore. So I'd had various connections. And so Jez was an old friend through that, and I got in touch with them because these were the obvious aeroplanes to fly. The problem with being an amputee is the toe brakes on an aeroplane are very are usually you have to move your foot forward to do it. Now, if you can imagine, that's not something that's possible for an amputee.
Unless you've got your heel up there, and that's really going to be near impossible.
You can't do it. So we were looking for an aircraft that had adapted brakes, and these Yakovlevs have got pneumatic brakes on the control column. So you use the rudders in the normal way, which you can with a flat leg, but the brakes are used on the control column. So I got in touch with Jez to talk to him about Yaks, and he said, look, I've got 8 aeroplanes here, we're not using them all at the same time, why don't you just rent a couple off me? And that meant that all the problems with maintenance, insurance, aircraft ownership, sponsorship, funding, kind of went away because all we had
modifications,
to do, and modifications,
which would normally be a great expense.
Huge. So, and what it meant is that the money we had to front up with was very, very small compared to if we'd had to get that whole thing going ourselves. And so we went back to the Barda Foundation. They fronted up tens of thousands of pounds to pay for our initial training.
Wow.
And that was in April of this year. First of all, we had to convert onto the airplanes, and this is myself and Alan this time as a 2-ship. Barry unfortunately wouldn't have been able to get in and out of the airplanes, so that was a shame.
I was going to say, this is going to be quite different from the work you were doing in the Pipers.
Yeah, and Pipers was very close formation. I mean, we were overlapping wings sometimes, and the guys were very good, but that's the only way you could make it dramatic, was to be flying really close. And that was just a case of doing dumbbells and things, changing from line astern into echelon and Vic, but it was limited with a kind of a fleur-de-lis break at the end. This is a complete, we're doing kind of gentleman's aerobatics, so it's loops, clover leafs, barrel rolls, that sort of stuff, in close formation, both in echelon and line astern. But these are large looping manoeuvres, and they are down to 300 feet, which is pretty serious. So we the first part of the display, the first 4 or 5 minutes is doing those. And then we break off, we do passes, we do hearts, we do breaks, we do rollovers, we do all the normal stuff you'd see at a regular air show down to 300 feet. So it's a proper grown-up air display. And it has to be done to exactly the same level as everybody else, because to get our DA we have to perform to exactly the same level. And the training that Jez has put us through, it's exactly the same as his regular pilots. And indeed, the deal is that I'm only living an hour down the road, is that Al and I can then slip into the full air display team if we're required.
Wow. Just wow.
What an impressive gentleman Mike is.
Absolutely.
And, yes, it puts everybody else's aches and pains and what have you into perspective, doesn't it, really? But
that's a bit of a reality check, isn't it?
Goodness me, what a brave man he is, and the things that he's been through. And but yeah, I can't wait to we conclude it with part 4, obviously, which is the last in the series, and we're going to make it available on our YouTube channel as a complete series as well. But it's absolutely fascinating, and I was gripped just by listening to him when I was filming all this. It was really fantastic. Now, of course, Mike's heavily reliant on sponsorship and that kind of thing. Of course, money doesn't grow on trees, we know that, but he does need some help. So let's go back to Nick and see how we can help him.
Mike, if someone did want to get in touch with you, how would they go about that?
Best way would be through the website, and that's teamphoenixair.com, and that's Phoenix, Phoenix, so teamphoenixair.com. My email address is there, but also you could call me on my telephone number. The UK cell number is +44 7973 762 301.
Brilliant, thanks.
And if you can spare a few pennies, then I'm sure he'd be very grateful for any support you can throw his way.
Can I just point out as well, guys, if you are listening to this as an audio podcast, you need to take yourselves over to the YouTube show and watch that back, because the quality of not just the audio, but also the visuals as well that Nev done on that day are stunning. So definitely take yourselves over to YouTube and check out that interview on our YouTube page.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony S is saying, love these interviews, great production values too. Mark Priestley has just sent a message in via the WhatsApp number as well, saying that Mike would have been a good James Bond. Ain't that the truth?
He would.
He'd be a brilliant
James Bond. DB6, can't you? Or DB5 or something. Yeah,
absolutely. Totally. I love that. If you want to get your messages into the studio, by the way, by text, it's +44 757 22 491 66. That's +44 757 22 491 66. There you go.
So it is time for our Caption This, just for fun part of the show. So every Wednesday on our Facebook page, we put a little picture on there of a certain sort of thing of the aviation relevance that makes us all laugh. And we ask you to send in or write down on Facebook your wittiest and funniest captions for us to say on the show. So this week, the picture that was chosen comes from a fairly well-known film, wouldn't you say, Nev?
Yeah, I think so.
Aviation world,
I'll tell you what, this picture that we are going to pop up, I'll tell you what, it reminds me very much. It's a picture of its time, shall we say, because there's there are some items in mouths and hands that you wouldn't normally see in a film or on television without any... without any context, shall we say. So it's from a very iconic film, and if you were watching, if you did catch it on the social media, then thank you for the comments that you sent in.
Yeah, so we had some comments this week on the picture. Obviously, the picture you've seen, for those of you who listen to the audio podcast, this is a screen snap from the film Airplane, and I think this is at towards the end of the film, Nev, isn't it? Where the inflatable first officer Otto, the pilot, inflates, and both him and I'll try and remember her name, and I can't remember her name now.
Right.
But the young lady stewardess, flight attendant, I should say,
flight attendant
is in the front there, and they are both holding a tobacco leaf. Kind of item.
You can say cigarette. That's
okay. They're holding a cigarette.
That's still not banned.
They're holding a cigarette. Okay. Not one of my favourite things, but there we go.
Yeah. Depiction thereof is banned technically, but as its historical image, I'm sure we'll be fine. Anyway.
Yeah. So we had the first one in. This one was from Bob, and he said, "Flight simulator from 1978." Discovered in barn, crew still flying the old-fashioned way.
Yes.
Like that.
Darry said, do you think that they bought smoking tickets?
Yes.
Ben says, anyhow, have a Winfield. That might only work in Australia, which was an 80s to 90s cigarette advert. But I seem to remember
I think we
Winfield
here
as well.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, absolutely.
John says, for all our pilots in the room, why have Airbus not fitted ashtrays?
Good point, well made.
Well, they are in the back. Well, I actually know, because most airlines don't have them in the armrest now, but they still have the no smoking signs above your head.
Well, yes, no, that is true. And Richard says this pilot certainly has an inflated ego. See what he did there. Indeed, haha, what? Yes, I still haven't seen Airplane, by the way, I should stress.
Oh, what?
I know. Although I managed to identify the picture, but to be honest with you, the only reason I was able to identify it was from a quiz that we did with Pip years and years ago, and he had clips and stuff. I think it was during the pandemic, wasn't it, when we were...
I'll send you my VHS of it. And you can
right, okay.
If you do this weekend, Mr. Smith, you need to watch this film.
I don't even have a DVD player anymore, Nev. I mean, I got no hope with a VHS now.
Honestly,
I've got a perfectly serviceable Blu-ray player that is under my stairs because I just can't throw it away. But I haven't got
I'll tell you what, I've got both the blinking films on my hard drive. I'm going to put on a blinking USB drive, and
wait, there were two of them.
Yeah. Oh no, was there three, Nev? With the space one?
I think our chat room folks will know, but I can't remember how many there were.
Oh dear.
Nick Codling is very unimpressed by the fact that you haven't seen Airplane, Matt.
Right. Yes, I know. Oh dear. There's also an older version.
Tony S is suggesting that we screen the film at our 400th.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, my understanding is that we will certainly have a very, very impressive device that would enable us to do that. So.
And Richard Adams has said that, Matt, you need to be word perfect with the film by the 400th.
Oh gosh, if I got to try and ram as many references to it in the
there's lots of cliches and lots of one-liners. Yes,
okay.
very much so.
Wow, it's an awesome film.
Dear, Carlos, drop it on the drive. I'll watch it. Drop it on the G drive, and I'll take a look at it at some point over the weekend.
Anyhow, moving swiftly on to the military segment. Now, this week, obviously, we have no Armando with us, but Armando has, he's obviously just been ridiculously legendary as usual.
Yes.
And sent us in the entire military segment as a video. So, Matt, if you are ready to hit that button.
Dirk S says he's going to test me on this, by the way, at the 400.
Oh, my word.
Test me on my knowledge. I note a theme building. Right, 0 Hour was the film it was based on, apparently, by the way. There you are. Anyway, time for the military. Here we go.
This first military story is from the aviationist.com. Last week we talked about some B-1 bombers being deployed to RAF Fairford. I'm hoping that Jonathan Warner get us some good pictures out of that. But as expected, the B-1s are starting to carry out some missions across Europe. They have been deployed there for a couple days now. They were carrying out missions during which they were training Allied Joint Terminal Attack Controllers, or JTACs, those are people on the ground directing airstrikes, over Lithuania ahead of their hot pit refueling at Spangdahlem Air Base. So these two particular aircraft belonging to the 9th Expeditionary Bomb Squadron of the 7th Bomb Wing from Dyess Air Force Base, Texas. They integrated with these coalition JTACs from Lithuania and U.S. Air Force Special Operations Command JTACs from the 352nd Special Operations Wing at Mildenhall. That they were marking simulated ground targets for the bomber air crews. And according to a press release from U.S. Air Forces in Europe, they said that this mission focused on enhancing readiness and interoperability from the controllers responsible for coordinating these airstrikes to support ground forces. So after operating in the Baltic region, the B-1s headed down to Spangdahlem, which is home of the 52nd Fighter Wing, where the Lancers landed for the very first time. Now, Spangdahlem's personnel executed hot pit refueling. Hot pits are routinely conducted as they allow aircraft to rapidly refuel without powering down the air engines. This increases their operational readiness, reduces the amount of time needed to get the aircraft back into action. Now, in this case, the 52nd Fighter Wing Airmen employed the new Versatile Integrating Partner Equipment Refueling, or Viper Kit. This Viper Kit system is part of the Agile Combat Employment capabilities. It functions as a universal fuel adapter, and it enables the bomber's ability to land and operate from austere airfields at any forward staging location. So along with the B-1's first landing at Spangdahlem, the use of the Viper Kit, there was an AFWERX spark tank. So this is kind of an initiative generator that received $1.2 million in funding to complete this project in January of this year. And this marked the first time that the refueling system was actually used outside of F-16 Falcons, especially in the U.S. Air Forces in Europe. Now, we got some images. Those images are from Adrian Sturmer on Facebook, and those were taken at Spangdahlem Air Base.
Now, I've mentioned this every time we talk about refueling. One of the things, it just melts my mind, the refueling an aircraft while it's moving. You just sort of, bring something in line, top it up a bit, and then they can carry on for another sort of, 2,000, 3,000 miles or whatever it is. Yeah. It's just like, it just melts my mind. It really does.
And not forgetting as well, that's one of Jonathan Warner's favourite aircraft.
Is it? Right. Okay. I thought the colour grey was his favourite.
Well, yeah. To be fair, any military aircraft is Jonathan Warner's favourite.
A very good evening to Airshow World, by the way, who's just joined us, and GB
Hello, Airshow World,
and everyone and all that. So thank you for joining us in time for Armando to share with us the military. As I say, I love refueling. It's one of the few things that I would be willing to get in an aircraft for to witness,
to watch.
I would love to see that. Do you know what I think it is? Also, it's that precision flying again. It's that precision flying where, they're lining themselves up to do that. They're saying, I'm amazed that the USAF don't use universal refueling equipment anyway. But the Americans like to do things differently to us, don't they? There's just why use a universal system when you can make it your own special one? Was it UK is the leader in refueling Cobham? What's that? What's Cobham? What am I missing there? What's that? Is that a base?
Yeah. I mean, we were the best at refueling, and then they got rid of the TriStar, and then it's all just gone to pot. But anyway, the next story from Armando is they're currently rotting at bloody. Pardon my French. Sorry, they're all currently rotting at blinking Bruntingthorpe on the airfield there now. Yeah. Total waste of. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that.
No,
so the next story from Armando is all about a particular aircraft that I was very
Cobham is a company, apparently, by the way. And it's now called Draken. Sorry.
I was very lucky to get a tour around this particular aircraft before Armando went back to the US. But anyway, this is all about the AC-130.
Oh, nice.
This next military story is from thedrive.com. The AC-130J gunship's first solid-state laser weapon has arrived for testing. The U.S. Air Force has taken delivery of the first prototype airborne high-energy laser, or, because we love acronyms, the AHEL. This is set to be flight tested on one of its AC-130J Ghostrider gunships next year. The U.S. Air Force hopes to demonstrate the feasibility of adding this directed energy weapon to the AC-130J's already very diverse arsenal, which would give these aircraft a unique capability to engage ground targets silently and stealthily. Lockheed Martin confirmed yesterday that it had completed factory acceptance testing for this AHEL and then turned the weapon over to the U.S. Air Force. A laser will now need to be integrated together with the beam control system, after which ground testing will take place ahead of the installation of the complete weapon system onto the AC-130J. According to a statement from Lockheed Martin, they said the completion of this milestone is a tremendous accomplishment for our customer. These mission success milestones are a testament of our partnership with the U.S. Air Force in rapidly achieving important advances in laser weapon system development. Our technology is ready for fielding today. So this all came from a 2019 contract where Lockheed Martin has been working to integrate, test, and demonstrate this new directed energy weapon on the AC-130J. That is also according to a company release. And they also noted that it's now on a rapid schedule to continue testing this capability. This entire project is a joint service effort. And in July of this year, the Lockheed Martin's Aculite Corporation received a new $12 million 5-year contract award from the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Dahlgren for technical services, integration, test, and demonstration of the AHEL to the Navy. Now, SOCOM has repeatedly said that this is going to be a 60 kilowatt class laser. There are some reports that it may actually be a little bit higher than that. The flight testing is supposed to kick off somewhere in fiscal year 22, which starts October 2021, which is right now. Now, the AC-130J already has a pretty impressive arsenal, as I said. It's got a 105 millimeter howitzer. It's basically a towed gun, usually on the ground, but they've modified it for aircraft use. It also includes a 30 millimeter GAU-23. It's a Bushmaster cannon. The aircraft can carry Hellfire missiles, small diameter bombs, Viper strike missiles, small glide munition bombs, as well as Griffins, all via these common launch tubes. And now if they get a laser, it's going to be a pretty capable platform. So we'll see how this turns out in the near future.
Every time I hear the word laser, I can't help myself. I immediately think of
Dr. Evil.
Dr. Evil and Austin Powers. Every time I hear that, some of those pictures, I know this has absolutely got nothing to do with the story as well. And thank you, Armando, because it's genuinely a really interesting story.
What aircraft with lasers?
Yeah, absolutely. The C-130 with what can only describe looked like it was part of like a mock-up or something for Star Wars. Do you know what I mean? With the green lasers and stuff like that. I don't know. I suppose it's. I mean, lasers are genuinely becoming a bit of a thing, aren't they? I mean, we've been using them to make stuff and burn stuff, and write things and all that kind of thing. I mean, they're getting quite powerful now that you can actually, sort of, use them in the, like they do in the films, burning stuff. Yeah. It's it's a great bit of technology, I think.
I tell you, I couldn't thank Armando enough for me and Gemma had, or me, Gemma, and my dad had our own personal tour around and inside the AC-130.
Yeah,
and it was mega. I tell you,
you sort of forget, you sort of forget what what Armando did really. I mean, we know him now as just a pilot, basically, commercial pilot, but. It's but then I suppose many have the same story, don't they, where they leave the military and go into commercial flying.
Yeah. So the next one from Armando is we're going to Australia actually for this next one. This is all about the Royal Australian Navy, and they had one of their MH-60Rs that ditched.
Well, this next military story is from smh.com.au. An Australian Navy helicopter has crashed into the Philippine Sea. The Royal Australian Navy has grounded its entire fleet of MH-60Rs, Seahawk helicopters, as one of these aircraft crashed just in the last few days. 3 Navy personnel on board the helicopter suffered minor injuries. They're all now safe after ditching the aircraft during this routine flight on Wednesday night. The helicopter was operating from the destroyer HMAS Brisbane as part of a deployment with the HMAS Warramunga when the crew conducted an emergency landing in the water. The Defense Minister, Peter Dutton, has confirmed that the Brisbane was nearby and rescued the 3 crew members. He also said that the investigation will be urgently conducted to assess what went wrong. He did say that they want to learn lessons from this mishap. The commander of the Australian fleet, Rear Admiral Mark Hammond, commended the crews of both ships involved for their quick response to this emergency. He said that the successful rescue is credit to the devotion to duty and skill of the officers and sailors of the HMAS Brisbane. Their immediate actions ensured the survival of the aircrew, validating the significant training undertaken in the event of emergency of this kind of nature. Both ships are continuing their search of the area for any debris that will aid in determining the cause of the incident. With the aircrew safe, investigating the circumstances that led to the helicopter ditching is their priority, according to Rear Admiral Hammond. Now, all this just comes just days after the United States approved a possible foreign military sales deal of additional MH-60R helicopters to Australia. The U.S. State Department approved this FMS sale to Australia of 12 multi-mission helicopters for an estimated cost of $985 million. This move would allow the Royal Australian Navy to have a single helicopter type in its fleet, which of course would ease maintenance. The Royal Australian Navy already has 24 in service, and they've been delivered since 2013 and 2016. So as usual, we're glad that the crew is safe, and we'll stand by to hear what happens from the investigation.
I mean, it always amazes me with any things like this that there are survivors at all, especially with a helicopter. I suppose that's one of the big issues, isn't it, with these helicopters? Is it's like literally, if something goes wrong with it and things stop spinning for whatever reason, they essentially become a dead weight, don't they?
God, you can't say that. You can't say that to a helicopter pilot on the maybe watching. They auto rotate, Matt. You know that.
No, I don't. What does that mean? What do you mean?
Well, that's where the rotors kind of go into a kind of a slow spin, and it gently. The helicopter gently comes.
So
even
if you have like a gearbox failure, not that that's what's
happening.
I
don't know in that respect. No, but we need to get a helicopter pilot on the show to explain it to us.
Dirk S is saying in chat room the airflow spins the rotors. Apparently,
that's it. That's the one.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, the MH-60 or the UH-60 as they're referred to as well, that is a very tough helicopter.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But does put up with quite a lot of banging, I should say, and damage and stuff.
But yes, as Armando says, absolutely amazing. Well done to all the the teams involved in there. There could have been so much more serious. It is a serious incident, obviously,
it is a serious incident,
but it could be more. Yeah. It could have had a far less satisfactory ending, shall we say?
So the last video we've got on the selection from Armando this week, and this is actually really good. This is all about the Wright brothers replica.
Oh, nice.
Okay, this last military story isn't actually a military story. I just thought it was a cool one to add in here. This is from the Dayton Wright brothers airport in Miamisburg, Ohio. There is an organization there called the Wright B Flyer Incorporated, which maintains a museum dedicated to the legacy of the Wright brothers. Now, as part of this effort, they built and maintained an aircraft back in the 70s, which mimics the appearance of the famous Wright Model B biplane from 1910. Now, this aircraft, they've taken it all over the state, the nation, and actually the entire globe to provide the public with a clear idea of aviation's early beginnings, the importance of the Wright brothers, and of course the importance of the state of Ohio in aviation. However, many years after the operation of this first aircraft, their first Wright Model B Flyer, nicknamed the Brown Bird, was, according to them, reaching the end of its economic operability. So over the last 5 years, museum volunteers, other contributors have been working hard to build an airworthy replacement for their Brown Bird. As of October 2nd, 2021, they successfully completed the first test flight of this new aircraft, dubbed the Whitebird, that was there in Miamisburg, Ohio. Brigadier General J. Jabbour, Air Force retired, performed this initial flight, and the museum will continue to make further tests to satisfy the requisite FAA, Federal Aviation Administration conditions for its issuance of the airworthiness certificate. Now, according to the board's president, Don Adams, he said that they're thrilled with the successful first flight of our Whitebird, and he'd like to thank the dedicated volunteers for their countless hours designing, fabricating, and building this new airplane. This aircraft will allow us to continue to provide education and entertainment locally, nationally, and internationally, sharing the story of the Wright brothers and the invention of manned-powered flight. Now, this organization, the Wright B Flyer Inc., is an all-volunteer, membership-based, non-for-profit corporation located at the Dayton Wright Brothers Airport near Dayton, Ohio. The group flies the one Model B lookalike during the summer months, and the hangar doubles as a museum. If you want more information on that, visit www.wright-b-flyer.org.
I mean, again, it's such a cool little aircraft here. Richard Adams is being very cheeky in the chat room, by the way, suggesting that this was Captain Jeff's trainer aircraft. I think that's perhaps a bit rude.
Yes.
Never mind, eh? I'm sure
they always get on to poor Jeff about the aircraft that he flies. I mean, it's bad enough when he flew the Mad Dog, and now he's flying the 717. They still have a go at him about it.
Well, quite, yes. Nev in the chat room was suggesting that I thought it was his current aircraft.
Oh, did I write that? Sorry, I
you
just
did,
thought
yes,
it.
absolutely.
I didn't mean to write it.
The words just fell out of your fingertips, eh?
Yes.
There we go, yeah. So that is the military for this week.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks to Armando for that, for putting all that together.
Yeah, definitely.
He's probably either still in the air or landing, or he could possibly be on an ILS approach right now. We just don't know. And please, Armando, if you are flying, just don't bother messaging us in the group chat, because concentrate.
I'm sure he will. Will.
Mind you, knowing Armando, he'll be hanging out the window and doing selfies, and
I doubt that somewhere. Anyway. Safety is very important in the world.
I know,
absolutely. And obviously, don't forget, if you do come to our 400th, you will have a very rare opportunity to meet the legend that is Armando.
Yes.
Along with a few other American friends.
He will be doing an autograph signing.
Will he? All right. Okay. We'll have to get him to write a book that we need to get him to sign. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be lots of great people there by all accounts. So really,
very much looking forward to it.
So if you haven't done so already, register your interest straight away.
Yes.
The only way to register your interest, by the way, is by email. You need to send it in to us, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. We've actually had some come in while we've been on the air well, which is great. So podcast@planetalkinguk.com is how you register your interest to participate in our 400th show.
When you do send your email in, we will reply. One of the team will reply, and we'll send you Nev's special link so you can book that all-important
Nev's
hotel.
special link, eh?
Yeah, it's a special link. So, and a special
what have you been doing,
well.
Mr.
Not that
Bounds?
one. Not that link.
I was going to say.
Mr. Bounds secured a very special promo code that you can use on said link to book your hotel at the Brooklands Hotel, and you get a nice little discount. And also, one of the good things that was sorted out with Nev and the hotel is that you can cancel it up to the
up to 2 p.m. on the day, which that rate is not available on any of the other systems, I don't think. So if you use that rate, you'll see it come up as, once you put it in when you check out, you'll see it comes up as Plain Talking UK. But you can actually cancel that right up until,
and you get a breakfast, Nev,
and you get breakfast as well.
Yes.
And you haven't got to pay up front either, so you only pay when you leave the hotel.
Check in,
so it's all good. So if you're listening to the audio version of this show later on in the week, don't forget to register your interest in that, so we can put you on the VIP guest list, because you are all VIPs.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, that's it. We need to start wrapping up. Who's going to do all the socials this week?
Go on, Nev. Do the socials, Nev.
Well, it's the usual, isn't it? But you can contact us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. Just search for Plain Talking UK. WhatsApp number, +44 757 2249 podcast@plaintalkinguk.com is the email. And the website is all the W's, plaintalkinguk.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room, as many people have tonight. So you can go to youtube.com and search for Plain Talking UK. Also, if you want to go to our website, there's an Amazon link on there. We get paid a small referral fee. So if you want to do your shopping via our website using the Amazon link on there, please do so. Also, you can become a patron as well of the show and contribute, which helps us keep the show running. And you can do that also from our website. So, folks, what's on next week's show?
Well, next week we will not be here.
No.
Due to slight operational difficulties, in that I will be in Malta, Matt will be somewhere else in the UK.
I should be in the Cotswolds with no internet.
In the Cotswolds.
Yeah.
Nev will be doing something business-like, flying somewhere or jetting across to his stately manor on his private jet. And Armando also is
he already gave us. He can say he gave us his apologies at the start of the show, didn't he?
Shock horror. Yeah, this is a first, I think, or a second. Maybe,
a second. I say the first one was when my car caught fire, wasn't it? That was, we didn't do the show that week.
So we won't be here next Friday. I'm really sorry. We all the team are really sorry. We are very sorry indeed. But I will have a good Carlos / Nev passenger experience to bring you when I get back, because I'm flying Jet 2 for the first time.
Ooh, exciting stuff. Indeed.
So that's it. That is where we're going to bring episode 388 to a close. Big thanks to everyone who's joined us in the chat room tonight, all the usual family members in there. Big thank you to you all for joining us on the show this evening. Don't forget to register your interest for the 400th if you're coming. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to tune in 2 weeks' time. All the team, hopefully, will be back here on the show. And
Richard Adams is saying, but the week after it'll be a 4-hour special, right?
No. Yeah. And Tony S is warning them of my arrival. That Tony S, that Malta does not need to be notified of my arrival. Yeah. They are waiting.
I think he was actually saying he's going to warn the border agency of Dirk's arrival.
Oh, right. Oh,
Dirk. Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah. Lee Davis also said the first shock was actually that you were on time and with no problems this week. I mean, how dare you? How dare you? Anyway,
I need to get back to controlling London Heathrow because it's obviously,
not coping.
Not
with
a lot going on.
Right. Okay.
This evening behind me there.
Okay.
So have a fantastic weekend. We're going to leave the last word to Nev to sign off.
Well, thanks very much for joining us this evening, folks. Sorry we're not here next week, but we're just all in different places and we can't make it all align, unfortunately. But never mind, we should be back with the following week with part 4, which is the final part of the Mike Wildman interview as well. So definitely stay tuned for that. Thanks very much and have a nice weekend.
Bye.